cross is such a heavy load. Ooh, my faith is growing cold. Lord God, hear my cry. My soul is heavy laden.
Crawling slowly towards the carpenter's shop, I reached the front door and stopped. Let go of my cross and I instantly dropped. In his eyes I saw compassion as he lifted me up. Son of David, I stated, I feel like giving this up. My relationship with you's on the rocks. I'm always trying to stand, but constantly falling a lot, and it won't stop. I don't know how much more of this I am able to take. I'm gonna break, forever making mistakes. My financial situation is rough. I clocking at my job daily, but I know that I'm not making enough. My supervisor doesn't like me much. He's such a jerk, trying to find different reasons so he can write me up. I need an additional part-time, cause I'm so far behind. I look through countless classifieds, but a decent job is so hard to find. And all this time I sit behind a cubicle, knowing inside this isn't what you have for me to do. Jesus, I'm only getting older. My ministry hasn't blossomed, and I'm ready to put this to a closure. While my group is constantly getting looked over, so-called Christian artists that don't promote you get the most exposure. And the ones that do are into themselves. They're all about making it big, or either record sales. They're big-headed, I heard their music, then met them. Try to show love, saw they were rude, then said forget them. I'm sick of hearing people tell us, keep bringing it fellas, but when it's time to help us, they consistently fail us. They can keep their encouraging lines, I know they take us for a joke. That's why my ministry is constantly broke. I'm forced to view Hazakim as a hobby. Anger towards believers that have wronged us is building up inside of me. My car's a jalopy, my situation is lousy. My in-laws don't like me, this road can go on without me. During my visit I explained more of my struggles and troubles, different issues I've been through, pains and sickness as he sat and listened. Tears rolling down my cheek, barely able to speak. I said, Lord, I'm just too weak, as I laid at his feet. Lord, the world flaunts their sin and they sit back and dare you to react. I try to follow your path and I'm under attack. And all this time you see me in despair, it seems you're not there. This cross you gave me is too heavy to bear.
This cross is such a heavy load. Trying to walk the straight and narrow road, but I'm afraid my faith is growing cold, cause my soul is heavy laden. Please hear the cry of my distress. Lord, I need a cross that weighs much less. I can't take this stress, I long for your rest. My soul is heavy laden.
In the blink of an eye, Jesus and I were in a humongous shed. I was shocked when he said, put down your cross, choose the one you prefer instead. As far as I could see, I saw nothing but trees in various shapes and sizes, like lowercase t's. Seeing so many different crosses I admit was frightful, yet I was completely mindful. This was the cost to being his disciple. As I walked beside him, I realized that different crosses symbolize different burdens just by the different sizes. Deep inside I had to sympathize, because before my eyes were the story of many different lives. I was a bit surprised when I saw unfolding before me testimony of the hurting who kept on with the journey. Through the myriads they endured some serious periods, rose over them victorious with each experience. They lived holy, I noticed not only were they crying for help, I saw the young and old finish the path by denying themselves. When they died and they were placed in the ground, it was then their cross was laid in exchange for a crown. The thought entered in the back of my mind, surely the burdens they carried in their journey weren't half as bad as mine. Yet at the pass of time I knew I had to find a more comfortable cross to suit me fine, unlike the kind that I had left behind. Without warning I saw before me, tucked in the corner near the front door, a cross that appeared to be shorter. I thought, that's the kind I see myself bearing. It looks very easy to carry, it won't have me constantly weary. Pointing at it selfishly I said, Jesus, I made my decision, with your permission I wish to carry this one. With a look of sadness he said, my child, I'm fully aware of all you've been through. Nonetheless you may take it with you. But as I ran to grab the cross in front of me, suddenly it started making sense. Oh man, this is the cross that I came in with.
This cross is such a heavy load. Trying to walk the straight and narrow road, but I'm afraid my faith is growing cold, cause my soul is heavy laden. Please hear the cry of my distress. Lord, I need a cross that weighs much less. I can't take this stress, I long for your rest. My soul is heavy laden.
Yes, my soul is heavy laden. Sometimes I feel like the pressures of this life are coming down on me, but I know your word says you'll never give me more than I can bear. So I'ma trust you, Lord. I'ma trust you, Lord. I'ma trust you, Lord. Yeah. Oh, 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 yeah, 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 yeah. Lord God, I will trust you. My soul is heavy laden. Ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It all started after Yeshua and his disciples parted from the Passover Seder. Later we find him in the garden, a place located near the Mount of Olives called Gethsemane, to get alone with God in a peaceful vicinity. With intensity he hit his knees and prayed to the Lord. He was for sure the suffering that he would endure. While his disciples laid and slept, he prayed till sweat started mixing with blood from psychological stress. Skeptics suggest vessels exploding seems kinda bogus. Many don't know it's medically termed as hematidrosis, a gradual effect. It made fragile his flesh, it made his physique weak even before he was beat. Arrested then questioned, we find him in the synagogue, sequestered to stand trial before the rabbinic law of the Sanhedrin, where they did stampede him and spit and strike him with their fists. His head beaten, the jolting of his brain caused a minor concussion, which resulted in temporary loss of brain function. Others slapped him while they asked him, prophesy, who hit you? Bruising his already weakened skin tissue. They sought the death penalty. The Pharisees were in no position to act on this decision. They needed Rome's permission. Now the race is on. The second trial is taking long. As he stood before Pilate silent, it's now the break of dawn. Yeah.
Listen, he was a victim of crucifixion, the most horrendous Roman invention. The infliction of pain that the victim sustained, we will explain using medical diction. Far from Michelangelo's depiction, he was brutally marred beyond recognition. His anatomy had to be scarred for redemption. This is the crucifixion description.
From Pilate they sent him to Herod's jurisdiction. Then they sent him back to Pilate for the final conviction. To appease them, he had him beaten and flogged.
From a medical perspective, tell us what was involved.
Astonishing, unbelievable form of punishment. Its intent was meant to extract maximum suffering. They used the whip that consisted of 9 leather thongs and metal bars that would tear into the man involved. With every lash given it left his muscles and his veins exposed, underneath hanging ribbons of flesh. Of 39 strikes they weren't supposed to go over. Sometimes they did, depending on the mood of the soldier. Exposure from his shoulders to the back of his legs. Most victims at this point would start passing away. Needless to say, his blood pressure is starting to drop. His kidneys have stopped, his anatomy's going through shock. Bodily fluids he's losing through the cuts and contusions. His blood volume is reducing while he becomes disillusioned. Hard to believe he still be living. Critical was his condition way before the nails were even driven. A bushel of thorns were found, then formed into a crown, which was placed above his face, then shoved down. They mocked Hell, king of the Jews, and started to laugh. They gave him a staff, placed a robe made of wool on his back.
Listen, he was a victim of crucifixion, the most horrendous Roman invention. The infliction of pain that the victim sustained, we will explain using medical diction. Far from Michelangelo's depiction, he was brutally marred beyond recognition. His anatomy had to be scarred for redemption. This is the crucifixion description.
Pilate gathers the masses and asketh, they should kill Barabbas or Jesus of Nazareth. Allow the crowd all agrees, set Barabbas the murderer free. Crucifixion was what Yeshua was soon to receive. He hauled the crossbar for over 100 yards, fatigued and scarred, destination the place of the skull. The weight of the log is making him fall, so they seized the man from Cyrene that made him take up the cross. The angry mob has pulled the beard from his jaw, vision blurred, speech slurred. The victim is starting to crawl. Reaching the end, he's put on his back, the soldiers have him pinned. Infection is setting into his skin. From this condition, his hands are laid in an outstretched position, while spikes 7 inches are being driven where the wrist is. He is then lifted, attached to the vertical beam, which is put in the ground permanently. No words in the language could explain this anguish. By his wrist he's hanging, his legs dangling. His feet are then placed together, one on top of the other. The third nail is knocked in, leaving him locked in. The weight of his body is dropping, making it impossible for him to live to get any oxygen. Unbelievable sight, seeing him hanging high. He was hard to recognize, like Isaiah prophesied. Massive wounds to his back, a spear wound to his chest. He took his last breath and died due to cardiac arrest.
Listen, he was a victim of crucifixion, the most horrendous Roman invention. The infliction of pain the victim sustained, we will explain using medical diction. Far from Michelangelo's depiction, he was brutally marred beyond recognition. His anatomy had to be scarred for redemption. This is the crucifixion.